Hello, and welcome to another video from Prepared Foods. I'm Chief Editor Bob Garrison, and this week we're looking at the dynamic market for protein. Protein is one of 6 rolling content themes that Prepared Foods will frequently target throughout this year. Today, we're talking with Stephanie Lind, founder of Elohi Strategic Advisors and the former Senior Vice President of Global Sales for Impossible Foods. Elohi is a woman-owned global sales and marketing agency that specializes in scaling companies into the North American food service market. And Stephanie also helped launch Impossible Foods into the market during its breakout year. She helped prove that Elohi's methods work as a go-to for alternative protein expertise. Not surprisingly, Elohi now has carved out a critical niche in food service, particularly as it relates to companies showcasing new protein alternatives. Stephanie's perspectives encompass all protein sources, including plant, animal, insect, and cell-based protein. She's also a keen observer of new developments involving many new novel protein technologies. Okay, Stephanie, so can you tell I'm one of your biggest fans?
Yes, back at
With that introduction, let me welcome you and say thanks for joining us. So looking back just briefly on 2021, what would you say was the most interesting new development involving protein as an ingredient?
So actually, I'm going to answer that with 3 answers. So one is where the money's coming from to fund all the innovation. And the answer to that is rather than it being predominantly US driven, we're seeing a lot of the innovation and startups coming out of Europe and Asia. So that was new in 2021. And secondarily, I've seen a major change in the way different constituencies in this space are sort of trying to own it. So, and by that, I mean Good Food Institute, who's known for alternative protein, but it's from a vegan standpoint. You've got the group around Plant-Based Food Association that isn't necessarily enamored with cell-based or science, things that aren't like closer to the plant. And then you have the cell-based space. And then on top of that, you have this resurgence in regenerative agriculture. So to me, it's the money, but it's also the political noise that's shaping how innovation is being driven. And then if I were to talk about the one thing that I watched in 21 and I'm seeing come to fruition in 22, well, actually, it's 2 things. It's microbial with an emphasis on mycoproteins. And then secondarily, you can see cell-based really starting to get its sea legs, if you will, in terms of standing up production and commercializing products and creating organizations that aren't just science-based, but now are science plus business.
Is there anything else did you see throughout last year? So you've answered a lot of things. You've tied a lot of things in quite well. I was just going to ask you simply what was driving it. And you kind of talk about some of the behind the scenes things. How about from a consumer perspective? What were consumers thinking about in last year in regard to protein?
Right. So that's where it gets really interesting because the money is funding and a lot of the startups that are coming in are forming what's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years because there is a lot of science behind it. The consumer still got their mind wrapped around plant-based. And so what they're doing to change what I believe is change the trajectory of plant-based proteins is, number one, they're starting to really insist on cleaner labels. So they want to understand what's in it. There's a lot of pushback on it being processed. Now, technically, chicken is processed before it's consumed by us as consumers or restaurant diners, but that's a different podcast. So it's really, can I get a cleaner label? What does this mean? Do you have anything that's not soy or pea processed or pea proteins? And they want to know that it's nutritionally dense. And the thing that I thought was really interesting in 21 that's going to lead into 22 is this push now by the consumer on, okay, you say that you're sustainable, you say you're better for the environment than the meat alternative or than your competition, prove it. So, and then with the labeling coming in 22 around bioengineered, I think that's just going to push on that more heavily.
Right. Okay. So I only have one other question now, and that is to look ahead at this year. And um, for product formulators, both in the food and beverage space, what should they be keeping an eye on? And meanwhile, I mean, we're hearing about new things as wild as protein coming from air.
Yeah.
And so, what else what else do you see? What should people be paying attention to this year?
So that's a great question. And you have to look at it from two different lenses. So from a consumer standpoint, if I'm the consumer, I should be looking for, ironically, innovation that's really putting the plant back in plant-based. And you can look towards Chipotle creating their own alternative protein for their products. Wendy's came out with a veggie burger. It's a black bean burger, right? So the restaurant chains are going back. When I look at the innovation that's coming out from some of the startups that I think that have the most legs, they're very veggie, plant, grain, legume forward. So for the consumer, that's what they're looking for. And that's where I think we'll see the growth. From an investor or someone like you and I that's sort of looking at the industry, I would say keep your eye on cell-based. Again, Singapore is out in front of us in terms of approving it from a regulatory standpoint. And we're behind in the US, which is why I think some of the money's going overseas. So cell-based. And then, again, this whole microbial mycoprotein space, which a lot of it is fermentation, which is similar, but is not a novel ingredient, so they can go a little faster. That's what I'll be looking at in the short term. A little longer term, more cell-based, and really the microbial section, because I think we're just getting started on that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all the time we have for this short video, and I hope I know we're going to capture more of your insights in a later podcast, and we can explore this topic a little bit more broadly. So thanks for your thoughts. We hope to all those watching, we hope you enjoyed this brief first-person video, and that you'll stay tuned for more on-trend topics of interest to food and beverage formulators. Check out more video insights at preparedfoods.com/videos, or visit preparedfoods.com and our protein information center below the ingredients heading.